I bought the cheapest scythe on the internet to find out how well it works. Here's what I found out. Scythes have been used for 5,000 years since the Neolithic period, being one of the largest breakthroughs in human technological advancement, allowing for mowing of grass to feed livestock and support animal rearing. Later advancing to reaping grain crops with the invention of the bow cradle, making it far easier than its predecessor, the sickle, where you're constantly bending. For some inexplicable reason, soon after the mass production of more efficient power tools that can make the job quicker and requires less experience, the scythe has fallen out of common use. However, there has been a resurgence, with new scythers striving to bring back this marvellous tool. Joining this resurgence can be a leap of faith. Buying a decent scythe can set you back around £200 with peening equipment, equivalent to $250 American, and with all the risk of not knowing how easy it is to use. The internet has come to the rescue, offering a plethora of offers for finding the cheapest scythes one can buy. My research has been thorough. The first 60 seconds was spent on Amazon with an array of plastic scythes coated in more scores than a mausoleum, or metal so-called scythes with a shape resembling a golf club. I therefore skipped across to eBay and found the cheapest scythe available on the first page. So from my quick search, potentially the cheapest scythe on the internet, costing a pittance at under 26.5 British pounds, around $34 for my wonderful American audience, or 3,000 rupees just for the off chance that I'm blessed with an uptake of Indian viewers. This is around a fifth of the price of the scythes I normally buy. Seeing this bargain price, I immediately bought this scythe, eager to put it to the test. Can a scythe for such a cheap price work? Well, let's find out. With the scythe arriving, I tear off the packaging and, as expected, find a rather cheap looking scythe. But does it work? Though simple in design, it feels sturdy enough. It has a metal snap rather than the wooden snaps that I usually use. The right handle was able to be adjusted using a spanner, but the left handle was not adjustable and has to be at the top of the snap. Although you may be able to do a few adaptations, such as drilling a hole through the handle to make it adjustable. I've decided to just use it how it was designed, without making any of these adjustments. This means the left handle is a little high for me, making it a bit uncomfortable, but still usable. I have a separate video on how to properly set up a scythe, which can help to get a new scyther started. Before mowing, I remove the paint from the edge, which has been carelessly slapped on, and then I give the blade a hone. I'm using a cheap stone, as I don't want to ruin my decent whetstone on this cheap blade. Price-wise, a decent whetstone will cost around £12. A cheap one, or rough artificial one, can be purchased for around £3. At the start, the blade is in an atrocious state. There are a few bits that are thin, but other parts that are extremely blunt, like impressively so. It has one part of supposedly cutting edge, which is around 2mm thick, impossible to cut with. I want to give the blade a swing before I correct the edge through peening, trying it out in the delivered state to give an idea of how easy it would be for someone who has not scythed before. Bear in mind that I'm a competent mower and have been scything for a few years. When I'm mowing, then I'm making lots of adjustments to make it cut better. Taking it to the grass for the first few swings, then it's not mowing well, however it is mowing something, which is the start. If I were to compare it with a weed slasher, which is hopeless against grass, then it is surprisingly effective. Trying instead on foliage with a rigid stalk, like bracken, then it can cut fairly cleanly. If you're finding this video useful so far, then let me know by clicking the like button, and I'll know to make similar videos in future. On to sharpening the blade to truly see its potential. If you want a proper scything experience, then you want a very sharp blade, so let's get down to peening. Peening is when you hit the edge of a blade between a hammer and anvil to flatten it, allowing you to hone it to a thinner edge that will last for longer. It needs an awful amount of work on this blade. The metal isn't great, and as I'm drawing so much metal down, then some of it forms a metal leaf and flakes off, which I've never seen on a high quality blade. for which you need to peen very thinly until you're at risk of getting a fracture. After a lot of work, the shape of the bevel isn't great, but it has a thin edge, and it now cuts fairly well actually. It is not very comfortable, the blade is quite short and the snap not being adjustable means I need to alter my technique to allow it to cut. In fact, I dug the blade into the floor a few times as I tried to adjust to it, but it does work. To get this scythe a lot sharper, I've done another peen and peened it very finely now. Now my mother's visiting and she's scythed before, and so I'm going to give her this really cheap blade and see how she finds it. Let's have a look. So it's one of the worst times to mow at this time of the year, but how do you find mowing with this very cheap scythe compared to the scythes which you are used to mowing with?
Well, I prefer my own. They're much easier to use, and also this one hasn't been set up for my height and I'm very short, so found this was not quite at the right angle for me.
Yep, so this scythe we can't change the angle at all. It's too tall for me as well. But yeah, it's quite, you have to have I found that my left hand was very high. You find that with both hands?
I found neither hand was in the right place. Yes, I would have much preferred to be a bit closer to the ground.
So do you think this is worth £27, I think it cost me? If you were going to buy a scythe, would you go for this scythe or would you go for a more expensive one?
Depends very much on what you want. If you want to do a serious job of mowing and have got a decent length piece of ground to needs mowing, I'd go for the more expensive one. If you were only going to do a very odd bit and wanted to try out scything, it might be worth just trying it, but it's not a serious scythe, I don't think.
Excellent, thank you very much. I absolutely agree with my mother. This tool works well. It's not as good as a scythe for around £220 plus postage, but then it costs a fifth of the price. It requires a lot more work to set up, and you'll probably want to improvise some peening equipment to get it sharp, but it gives a bit of an idea before splashing out. It may teach you bad habits when you're learning to scythe, as it won't be set up correctly. However, on the other hand, you won't be as worried about damaging a cheap blade. So I'm surprised to give it a stamp of approval, but with a big caveat that this is noticeably poorer quality, not as comfortable or as enjoyable. However, it can work well. My other videos include learning to scythe, permaculture and living history. Thanks for watching and see you next time. I don't think I'm going to use my normal whetstones on it because I don't want them to be ruined by this. But when I can do this, that is not a good sign.